React Navigation version 8 is now available, and honestly, it might be the biggest update they've introduced in years. It supports static configuration, liquid glass for iOS 26 out of the box, material colors for Android, and a TypeScript experience that actually works. In today's video, we are building an application from scratch so that you can understand how the latest version of React Navigation works step by step. Hey, if you're new here, I'm Beto. I spent years building mobile applications at Walmart, then at Expo as a developer success engineer, where I helped thousands of engineers build production applications. Now I run Code with Beto full time, where I help developers master mobile development and ship real applications. We have some success stories, students who landed their first mobile dev role earning 6 figures, and others who are already making money from their applications on the stores. If you want to be part of that, I have a Discord community, a weekly newsletter, and a pro membership. All the links are in the description. Let's get into it. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Beto, what about Explorator? And look, I love Explorator. I actually use it in most of my applications, and I have a whole section on it in my course. Make sure to check it out. But here's the thing most people don't realize. React Navigation actually powers a lot of what Explorator does under the hood. And in the real world, a lot of companies are still using React Navigation directly. If you're looking for a job as a React Native developer, it's very likely that you're gonna be expected to know React Navigation or at least be familiar with it. This video is going to help you with that. On top of that, I've talked to hundreds of developers and many of them just don't like the file-based routing system. So this video is for those who prefer full control and handling navigation in a very customizable way, which is completely valid. So here's what we're doing. We're going from zero to creating a project from scratch, all the way to covering how to install and set up React Navigation. We're going to learn about static configuration and the difference between dynamic configuration. We will create stacks, bottom tabs using liquid glass, modules, dark mode, and full type safety. And by the end, I'll show you how React Navigation version 8 handles authentication flows. It's way cleaner than you would expect. Hit subscribe, let's get started. Alright, so let's get down to business. I'm going to start by creating a new project. I'm using Warp. Warp is the terminal that I like to use, and it's amazing because you can ask the agent things like navigate to my apps folder in my desktop. Link is in the description in case you want to try it out. So here's the command. So I'm just going to run the command directly, hit enter. Perfect. So now I'm inside the apps folder, and here's where I want to run the following command to create a new project. I'm going to create a new Expo app using the template blank with TypeScript at SDK 55. React Navigation version 8 is only compatible with Expo SDK 55 and above. I'm going to run this command and I'm going to call my app React Navigation version 8 video. Let's hit enter. Perfect. And now we can see into the folder. Once we are in the folder, I'm going to open this in VS Code by running the command code dot. This is how the project looks like. Blank TypeScript will only create just one simple component, app.tsx, and this is great because we have the package JSON super clean to start installing the dependencies that we actually want. If you use the default template with Expo, it's going to use Expo router by default. That's why we're using the blank. At the moment that I'm recording this video, React Navigation version 8 is not compatible with Expo Go. That means that we need to use a development build. The next thing that I want to do in my brand new project is install React Navigation native at next. So you can run this command, hit next, and this will install the alpha version of React Navigation. We are using the alpha at the time that I'm recording this video, but I actually had a conversation with Satya, the guy who maintains React Navigation, and he told me that there aren't going to be breaking changes from alpha to the stable release. He might add a couple extra features, but the things that we are going to cover in this video are not going to change in the stable version. So you can actually start integrating React Navigation version 8 and take advantage of liquid glass, material colors, and all the good stuff in your project using the alpha because it's not going to change a lot. All right, so after we installed React Navigation Native, we need to install React Native Screens, which is a pair dependency, React Native Safe Area Context, and to enjoy it of liquid glass, React Navigation uses call stack liquid glass package. So let's go ahead and install these dependencies. Almost ready. We need one more dependency because React Navigation is conformed of navigators, and all the navigators are in separate packages. So we have navigators for bottom tabs, stacks, drawers. So if you want a specific navigation component, you might need to install a different navigator. but the one that you're going to be using all the time, it's going to be React Navigation native stack. So let's install it at next. By the way, I'm using at next since I want to use the alpha version. So you need to use at next as well if you want to use the alpha, or if you are watching this at the time that React Navigation has been released, just use at latest. Okay, so let's hit enter. And now we have native stack. And finally, I'm going to install React Navigation Elements. React Navigation Elements provides a set of components that are designed to work with React Navigation. Things like buttons and links. So we're gonna be using a couple of them. I think this is kind of like optional in case you want to create your custom elements and components for your navigation, you can do that. But for the sake and simplicity of this video, let's use React Navigation Elements. All right, once we have our dependencies, we need to pre-build the project. So let's run npx expo prebuild and hit enter. This will generate the Android and iOS native folders of the project, and then we can compile it. Now let's compile the application for iOS. So I'm gonna say npx expo run iOS and hit enter. Okay, the application is building. This is gonna take like a minute. In the meantime, I actually want to show you the source code of the React Navigation package here on GitHub. And if we quickly go to the packages, you're gonna see all the navigators that we can use. So like I said, we can use bottom tabs, we can use drawer. Elements is the package that we just installed, is the set of components that we can use or are designed to work with React Navigation. We also have material top tabs, native stack, we are using it at the moment, React Native tab view, and other packages. So it's a good way to think about React Navigation, not just in one package, but it's actually multiple packages that you can break down depending on the navigation that you want to achieve. In some cases, you might need everything. All right, and the application is compiled. Here we have it. So this is the hello world that we are seeing in the app.tsx. And if we just quickly change this, hit save, we are enjoying of live reloading. Everything is working. We haven't set up navigation yet, but it's a good thing that it's compiling. Now let's run it for Android. I'm gonna say npx expo run Android, hit enter. Okay, so here's my Android emulator. Let me close my Warp terminal for now. We're not using it. So the Android emulator is working as well. And here I also have an iPhone 16 Pro using iOS 18. Now, since Apple released iOS 26, we have to be careful with backwards compatible. iOS 18 does not support liquid glass. So I would recommend that you run your application on older versions and just double check that it looks fine. So let's run it on iOS 18. I'm gonna say run iOS /-d to select a device. And in here, I'm going to select my iPhone 16 Pro, which is using iOS 18. Okay, and everything it's looking fine. Okay, so we are finally ready to start implementing our navigation. But before we do that, we actually need to understand a concept very important. And I actually created a cheat sheet that I'm gonna leave the link in the description in my blog at codewithbeto.dev, where I'm laying down a bunch of topics that you need to know, especially if you're using the latest version. And the most important thing I would say is that you need to understand the difference between static and dynamic navigation. So since React Navigation version 7, you can use a static API to declare the navigation of your application. But just know that the creators of React Navigation recommend that we use the static API. And this is how it looks. Basically, the difference is that when you declare the stacks or the screens that you're going to be using in your application, you are just writing an object, a JavaScript object that looks like this. So in this case, we're defining two screens, home and profile, and we're passing the components, right? This is how the static API looks like. But you can also use a dynamic API, which is similar to Expo Router or older React Navigation versions. In this case, you will have components and you need to wrap your screens like this. You might be familiar with this if you are developing with React Native for a while. The good thing about this is that, you might be already familiar with this, but at the end of the day, this is more boilerplate, more code. But still is more flexible. Static is for most applications, and that's what I'm going to be teaching you in this video. It's simpler setup and it supports deep linking by default. versus dynamic, you should use it when you need runtime conditional screens like auth flows and feature flags. But I'm gonna teach you as well how you can handle navigation using the static API, so no worries. There are other components in this blog, so make sure to save the blog. It's gonna help you a lot. But now that we understand the difference between static and dynamic, let's start defining some screens with the static approach. So let's start by creating a new folder in my project that is gonna be called navigation. And inside this folder, I'm going to have a new folder called screens. And inside screens, I'm going to have my home screen.tsx. Now, inside the navigation folder, I'm going to also create a new file for the entry point of my navigation. You can call it root or navigation. I'm going to call it navigation.tsx, or you can name it whatever you want. But this is where we're going to define the navigation. This is the entry point of the app. So let's quickly define a simple component here for the home screen. I'm going to use a scroll view from React Native with a simple text. And for the text, I'm actually going to use a package that I built myself. Let me install it. You can install it as well if you want. It's code with Beto/UI. And let me start the server again. Oh, and make sure that we are using a development build. By pressing S, you can switch to the development build. Okay. So text can come from my little package from code with Beto UI. And I'm going to say home screen. And this is a simple text that comes with a type, and you can select the size. So I'm gonna say for Excel, and you can also pass the weight. This keeps the text a lot cleaner in my opinion, and I like to use it in some applications like in this one. And then we can actually start using this screen in our navigation. So we're going to create a stack navigator. Stack Navigator allows you to put screens on top of each other, and in most of the time you're gonna need a Stack Navigator to be the entry point of your application. So let's declare a root stack, and this is going to be equal to create native stack navigator, and this will come from React Navigation native stack. And this of course is going to take an object with the configuration that we want to use. So in here, it's where we define the screens. And at the moment, I only have one. So let's give it a name. You can use uppercase or lowercase like this. I prefer to use uppercase. And in here, I'm going to call create native stack screen, which is a function that is coming as well from native stack. And it's going to take a config like the actual screen component. So in here, we need to pass the home screen. Let's import that. This is how it looks. Once we have the root stack, we can actually create the static navigation. So let me actually export a const called navigation equal to create static navigation. And we are going to pass the root stack. So let's hit save. This is my actual navigation. Super clean. Now we need to actually use this navigation. So let's go to the entry point of our application, which is app.tsx. And in here, instead of having all these things, I'm just going to return the navigation from my navigation file. All right, this is how it looks. Let's remove these imports. And now I'm going to refresh the application. Okay. And now we have navigation. Let's take a look at the iOS 18 and also Android. It looks nice. It looks good. We have now this header that we can actually configure from the root stack object. So apart from passing the screen to this home that we are declaring here, you can also pass some options. And options allow you to customize the screen. You can say things like title. I'm gonna put my name, Beto. And now you can see that we have the title Beto there. If you don't like it, you can hide the header by using the header shown equal to false. And now we don't have anything, but I actually want it in this case. You can also change the background color by accessing the header style object, And in here, we can declare the background color. You can say orange, for example. Hit save, and now it's orange. All right, cool. So this is how we declare screens to navigate between. So at the moment, I only have home screen. Let's go ahead and create a settings screen by duplicating this file. So I'm gonna copy paste this, and let's change the name to be settings. And let me update this. All right, let's close it. Let's close it. And we could do the same. So we can just duplicate this, paste it in here. But in this case, it's gonna be settings. Let's pass the settings screen and hit save. So by having these two screens in the root stack, this means that now we can navigate from the home screen to the settings screen and vice versa. And settings, let's change the background color to be tomato for settings. Now let's see how we can navigate between these two screens. Let's go to the home screen, and I'm going to create a new button here. Let me bring button, and I can actually bring this from the React Native Elements package that we installed. So let's say go to settings, hit save, and now I have a button, which looks good, and I don't need to install it. Perfect. So now when we press this button, we can use the onPress in. I don't think it has an onPress. So let's use the onPress in. Now to navigate, we need access to the instance of the navigation. To get that instance, we can grab it from a hook called use navigation, which comes from React navigation. Let me import this. Use navigation will bring me the navigation instance, and then I can call that in here. Let me actually create a function. And then I can say navigation dot navigate. This function, you're gonna use it all the time, and you can specify where do you want to navigate. So in this case, I need to pass the name of the screen that I want to navigate to. Let's say settings, and let's just press the button. Now, it is working, but it's still giving me a warning, and it's telling me that argument of type string is not assignable to parameter of type never. Now, TypeScript is complaining here because we need to declare the type of the root stack that we're using. So let's see how we can do that. It's actually pretty easy. Here's the root stack. So we need to define this type. Let's create a new type, and we can actually copy this. And this is gonna be root stack type equal to type of root stack. That's my type. Once we have the type of the stack, we can declare a module for React Navigation Core. And what we are doing is just using the root navigator interface and extending it to have the type of our root stack. And this is how we do it. This is the syntax. And this is needed to type check hooks such as use navigation, use route, use navigation state. These are some hooks that we can use when handling navigation. So if I hit save, now the error is gone. And because now this hook has access to the types, this means that I'm going to have autocomplete when I name my screen that I want to navigate. This is very useful because in a real application, you're going to have tons of screens and you can get lost easily. And if you are not using TypeScript, you are going to maybe mistype something, and that is going to lead to an error. So yeah, in this case, we can have type safety, and now we are sure that we are navigating to the settings screen. Now, another thing to notice is that we are enjoying of liquid glass buttons by default in iOS 26. And let me show you how this looks on iOS 18. It's using the exact same, navigation that you would expect on a native application using iOS 18. And for Android, it's also using the native navigation. We have the ripple effect when I press the button and everything looks correct. Of course, we're customizing the background color, but it's good to know that it's looking good on all devices. So in the settings screen, as you can see, by default, we have the back button that says home, and we can actually, remove it if you want to, or we can again use navigation using the hook from React Navigation Native. And then we can create a button here. Let's bring it from elements that says go back. Then let's add the on press in event, use navigation. And we have so many methods that you can access here. But the one we want, it's this really handy go back function. You can call it like this, or even you can call it like this, passing the function directly to the on press in handler. So if I press go back, it's gonna take me back. So by default, the entry point of the stack, the stack is going to have the home screen. And when we navigate to the settings screen, we're technically pushing that to the stack. And when we navigate back, when we call go back, we are popping the settings screen or the last item in the array. But we need to be careful actually, because if we call, for example, go back in the home screen, which is the only screen in the array, let's try that out. Let's go to the home screen. And I'm going to copy the go back button. What happens if I press this button? It's going to give me an error, as you can see here. And the reason for that is because we don't have a screen to pop or to remove from the stack. In that case, it's also worth noting that we can actually validate that to prevent this kind of edge cases. You can say things like if, and then accessing navigation. We have this actual function that is going to let me know if we can actually navigate back. And if that's the case, then we can call the navigation dot go back. Otherwise, we are not going to do anything. So if I do that now, nothing will happen. So we are gracefully handling the navigation. Okay, so now I want to spend a couple minutes just improving the UI. I know that we can customize it like this, but actually I don't really think that looks good. So let's go ahead and remove it. And now it's going to use the default theme that comes with React Navigation. But actually for iOS in my applications, I like to use the header large title. So let's go ahead and enable that. This is going to use it like that. Now in the home screen, since we're using a scroll view, we can set the content inset adjustment behavior to be automatic. It's safe, and this will handle putting the content inside in a nice way. So since this is a scroll view, now we will have that really good transition that looks amazing on iOS 26. And this will also look good on iOS 18. We have the transition, as you can see there, but now we don't have a background. So we need to handle that on iOS 18, and this is why it's important to always run it on iOS 18. And for Android, we actually don't have a large header, so it's going to remain the same way. Still works. All right, so let's add a quick style here. I'm gonna say content style, container style. Just gonna add a quick padding of 16. Now everything looks cool. I can actually now remove this since I'm using the large header, and I can even add a gap of 16 as well. Now we have space between items. It looks way cleaner. Let's go back to the other platforms, and it looks nice, right? Cool. Also worth noting that you can add a variant like plain for the buttons, and now this is going to, just have a plain button like that, or field. That's how it looks. So let's use a plain for this, and a tinted, and a field. Okay, now this looks nice. Let's check it out on Android. Okay, looks good. So to handle the background color, let's use the style, and I'm going to pass white, for example. But see what happens. Now it's gonna look good on iOS 18 and Android, but now iOS 26, it's disappearing, right? The text, we cannot see it anymore. In that case, we can use the flag is liquid glass supported, and this is actually a const that it's going to return whether we have support for liquid glass, and this is coming from the call stack liquid glass package that we installed at the beginning. So we can say if it is supported, I want to use transparent, otherwise I want to use white. And look at that. So now still looks good on iOS 26, but now we are handling gracefully iOS 18. Quick coffee break. If you want to build applications that actually make money, consider becoming a pro member at codewithbeto.dev. You get all my courses plus production-ready projects like Plátano, a ready-to-ship AI image app with payments already built in. One price, lifetime access. Everything I build goes in there. Link in the description. All right, back to the video. All right, now that we have a stack, let's add bottom tabs to the application. So as you might imagine, we also need to install a new Navigator, which in this case is going to be bottom tabs. So you can take the package name from the cheat sheet that I left in the description. Let's go back and let's install this Navigator. I'm going to stop. Let's run bun install, and I'm going to install React Navigation bottom tabs at next. Remember that we are using the alpha version. Now, if we take a quick look at the package.json, now I have this package. Perfect. So since now this component comes with native support for native tabs, we need to pre-compile and run again the application. So I'm gonna say npx expo prebuild platform iOS clean to make sure that we don't have any cache. Okay, let's do the same for Android and let's run it. Let's run it for Android as well. Okay, so the application is still working in all the applications. So I rebuilt the application for my 3 devices and we're good. We are ready to start creating the tabs. And it's actually, the API is very similar to what we did with the stack. So for this, I would encourage you to go to the cheat sheet and just copy the tabs. Let's copy this. And I'm going to put this here, just above the root stack. Let's create now, in this case, bottom app navigator. And let's bring this from the new package that we installed. Now let's define the screens. Let's actually reuse the settings screen that we already have. Let's use it in here. So I'm defining 2 tabs. And now what I'm gonna do next is nest my tabs inside my root stack. So instead of having this entry point as the home screen, let's actually use the tabs. And let's hit save. Let's see what happens. Okay, and now I'm seeing this error that says that we have multiple screens with the same name. I actually forget to call create bottom tab screen. And this is going to take this screen as well, in this case, home screen. And actually I can remove it from here. Basically, we need to do the same here, but with settings screen, and hit save. All right, let's restart. Okay, and I had that little error because I actually was using the wrong version of Elements. I forgot to install it with the at next, so I wasn't using the alpha and that was causing the issue. After installing the alpha version of Elements and refreshing everything, now it works. All right, so basically what we are doing here is just create a new stack that contains the tabs and set it inside my root stack as the entry point. This is how it looks. I have home with my tabs, and we can actually change this to be tabs if you prefer. That way the home screen remains inside the tabs. So right now you can see we're using liquid glass on iOS 26, and this is how it looks on other platforms. So right now we are not seeing the icons, but they look good and they are fully native. Android is using the material tabs, and on iOS 18 and older, we're still using the native implementation. So in the tabs, we can also specify options like the symbol. So let's use tab bar icon. Let's use type. And by the way, you can now use San Francisco symbols with React Navigation version 8. So now we need to specify the name. Let's say home, I don't know, HomePod for now. Hit save. And now we have it down here. Amazing. Let's check it out on older versions. Okay, cool. And of course, this is not going to be compatible with Android. But don't worry, because React Navigation, it's also compatible with material symbols. So for example, if we set the type to material symbol and then pass the name favorite, this is going to break it on iOS at the moment, but you can see that now we have the heart here on Android. Fully native, looks absolutely amazing. So to have this in a way that it's compatible for both platforms, we can use a platform select. And by the way, material symbols can be customized in the package JSON by selecting the font that you want to use. For example, you can set the variant to be rounded or have a different weight. And then also you can specify it here once you have added the font. So right now I'm going to be using the default, and in the cheat sheet, I actually created a little snippet that will show you how to use the tab bar icons. So I'm going to copy this. Let's bring it in here. Let's paste it in here. So we're using platform from React Native to validate the platform. And of course, by default, if you're running this on web, you can also set an image and pass the path. So let's hit save and let's refresh the application. I'm going to remove the default for now, since I'm not running this on iOS, since I'm not running this on web. Let's open the application. Now it's not breaking for iOS. Let's go back. All right, and that's how you actually handle multiple icons with multiple platforms. This looks absolutely crazy. So let's create a similar icon for the other screen. Just copy the options, paste them in here. Of course, we want a different icon. I'm going to use the year for settings. And if you don't know the name of the icon that you want to use, you can just always go to the fonts.google.com and search for the icon that you want to use. So in this case, I just noticed that there is in fact an icon called settings. So let's use that. Hit save and let's check it out. Now it's looking good on Android as well. Fully native with ripple effect. It's absolutely crazy. And another thing to notice is that we can still navigate to the nested screens. Like for example, we can go to the settings here, but notice what's happening. Since this is a tab, it's navigating me to the tab directly. It's like I'm selecting the tab, and the same is going to happen here because we are navigating basically to the same component. Quick coffee break. If you're serious about React Native, consider becoming a pro member at codewithbeto.dev. You get my full React Native course, TypeScript, Git, plus real production projects with source code you can ship. One price, lifetime access, everything I build goes in there, link in the description. All right, let's get back to the video. All right, so the application is looking great, but something that is bothering me a little bit is that my application is not compatible with dark mode. Right now, everything is hard-coded to light mode. And it works nice, but it would be nice if we could handle it automatically, depending on the system. So if we go to the app.json, we can define the user interface style. Right now it is hard-coded to light, but let's change it to be automatic. Okay, so since I'm changing the app.json file, that means that I need to pre-build and recompile the application again. So let's do that. All right, so after rebuilding in all of my devices, now it should be compatible with light mode and dark mode. So right now, even though I'm changing this from light to dark mode, nothing is changing. You can see that I'm toggling with pressing Shift Command A, but my application, it's not doing anything. The reason for that is because by default, React Navigation is using the default theme. React Navigation comes with dark and light mode, but we need to specify them here. Let's go back to my app.tsx and let's import dark and default theme. And my navigation, the one that I'm exporting here, this one actually takes a property called theme. And in here, I can pass the theme directly. So let's say that I want to hard code this to dark mode. If I hit save, suddenly my application changes, including other platforms. But of course, we are not handling this gracefully because we need to change this according to the system. So let's grab the theme from the use color scheme hook from React Native. And this will tell me if the device is using dark mode. So we can check is dark mode. This is going to be equal to true if the theme is dark. Okay, and then based on that, I can validate if it's dark mode, then let's use the dark theme. Otherwise, let's use the default theme. So let's hit save. And just like that, when I come here and toggle, it's gracefully handling dark and light mode. Okay. Okay, so there are a couple of things that I'm not changing, like the text that I created is not changing, but everything that I'm using straight from React Navigation, it's handling dark and light mode gracefully. So if we go back to, let's say, iOS 18, if you notice, this is not changing because in the home screen, we're actually hard coding a white color here. So instead of using white, I think we can use undefined. Let's see if this fixes it. Let's go back. Okay, perfect. Now we are using, the default colors for dark and light mode. And this looks good, right? In both platforms. All right. Now, there is one little thing here, and that I'm personally super excited, is that React Navigation also supports material themes. So you can grab the color from the wallpaper. So let's import material from, let's go to the app from here. So I'm gonna say material light, material dark, and we can apply those for Android. So here we have the built-in themes, and we can grab these colors from the default theme, like primary, background, card, text. You can use these colors for your components, right? And it's going to work nicely. And here we have a nice example of the material color, material light theme, and material dark theme. So let's use that for Android. I'm going to create a variable called current theme, and then let's say platform.select. For iOS, we want to use dark and light, so let's just use the default. But for Android, we can check if it's dark mode, then we want to use the material dark, otherwise material light. And then we can pass this directly here. Okay, let's hit save, and let's check this out on Android. Awesome, look at that, guys. Automatically is grabbing the colors from the device. And you can see that because if I swipe down, my color is like blue. But if I change to dark mode, now it's a different blue, but my application, it's also applying it. This is absolutely crazy. Now it gets way crazier because the settings screen, it's hard coded to be black, right? Let's go to the settings screen here. Let's go, and I'm using my text, right? But we need to pass the colors. So what we can do here is just give it a style, and the color is going to change depending on the theme. So we can do something similar to what we're doing, or we can pass directly the color here from the theme. So for example, we could import the default theme colors.text, right? And it's going to be black, but it's not going to handle dark mode yet. So this doesn't really work, although it's worth noting that you can access a color like this. But if you go to the cheat sheet, I also have a snippet here telling you that you can actually use the hook use theme from React Navigation native. And then you can grab the colors, and from here, you can just say colors.text and hit save. And I'm going to actually copy this so that we can actually see the content of the item. And the cool thing about this hook is that it's going to give you the colors with dark and light mode colors. So for Android, this is going to give me the text color using dynamic colors from the material colors. This looks absolutely amazing on Android. And let me show you what's the craziest part here is that if I come here and change my wallpaper, instead of changing the wallpaper, I think I can change the color of the theme. When I change my wallpaper, now the entire interface is purple, right? And if I go now to my application, it's adapting to the native colors, which is absolutely crazy because the user can customize it as they want. And it's not only about the colors. You might be thinking, okay, so I cannot use my colors, but it's very important because of accessibility. If we go back here, users can also change the contrast to something that they can actually see better, right? So you can say medium or high contrast, right? Now, if you notice, the purple is way stronger when you say high, right? So let's keep it like that. Now, if I go back to the application, if you notice, the contrast is way higher. Of course, maybe some of users won't actually use this, but it's worth noting that it might be important for some users, and just using the defaults and just using the platform settings will automatically adapt your application, which in my opinion is a game changer. And on top of that, of course, this is still compatible with dark mode, as you can see there. Quick coffee break. If you want to build applications that actually make money, consider becoming a pro member at codewithbeto.dev. You get all my courses plus production-ready projects like Platano, a ready-to-ship AI image app with payments already built in. One price, lifetime access. Everything I build goes in there. Link in the description. All right, back to the video. Every application needs authentication. Here's how you can handle it using React Navigation version 8. Let's go to the entry point of our navigation. And here in the root stack, you can actually validate the screens that you want to show. So for example, you can use a property if, and if takes a function that should return a Boolean. So I can set this to false. And basically what I'm saying here is that if false, then don't show this, right? By default, this is gonna be true, which means we can access the tabs, but of course I need to refresh here. And this is useful for authentication flows. So for example, you would have something to separate stacks, right? Let's say that you have a stack for authenticating the user that will include a sign in, sign off, forgot password, and then you will have another group of screens for authenticated users. So in this case, the home screen. So let's grab these settings and actually remove it or change it to be something like auth. And let's create an auth screen. When I go to my screens folder and let's create auth.tsx. I'm going to copy everything from the home screen and let's just change the name to be auth. All right, so this is my auth screen. Let's bring it here. Title is gonna be login. Cool. So ideally, when you're handling authentication, you will create a context, and in the cheat sheet that I created, link in the description, I have an example of how you would handle this. Usually you would create a context to take the state of the authentication and put it as a high order component and then access the value, whether the user is authenticated or not. You can create functions like use is sign in or use is sign out, and then pass those variables. I mean, for example, this is going to return true or false, right? Based on the context. So based on that, you can just use the if and then use if use is sign in. This will automatically validate the screens that we should render based on the authentication state. So let's see how this would look like, but at a simple scale. Instead of using a context right now, I'm just going to hard code this to, let's say, false, because the user is not authenticated. In case you are new to context and all these APIs, I would actually encourage you to check out the React Native course. Under Export Router, I have a lesson with authentication flows, and this lesson actually covers everything that you need to know to handle authentication. If you are new to React, I also have a lesson in my React with TypeScript course. I have a lesson called Providers and React Use Context. This lesson will teach you everything you need to know on how to abstract the state and set it as a higher order component to then use it and your components cleanly. Pro members get lifetime access to all my courses. Link is in the description. Make sure to check it out. It's going to help you a lot. All right, so for now, let's just hard code this to false, and then we can pass that function here. Then we can also have an if. So let's pass the if for these two screens. Okay, and this is funny. Right now, this is returning false. But for example, you can create a new function that is gonna let me know if it's signed out, right? So in this case, it is true. That means that we actually want to show the authentication screen. So if I pass that in here, now this is true, this is false, and we are seeing the login screen. So let's go to the login screen. Let's just create a simple button here. Let's call it sign in. Let's use the colors. I'm gonna pass this here. Let's say style, color from the theme. So colors, text. There we go. So this is my authentication screen. Now, when the user presses sign in, we actually, in this case, want to authenticate the user. In this case, you would kind of like have a method coming from your context and sign in the user. So when we press this button, we basically want to switch the flag. In this case, it's going to be false. And in this case, it's going to be true once the user authenticates. So what would happen is just what's going to happen right now when I press Command S. Automatically changes to the home screen. This is what would happen when the user is authenticated. And ideally, you would need to store these locally. So the next time that the user opens the application, it's going to be signed in automatically. So the important part here is just knowing that we have this if property that you can use to pass the function and validate whether the user is authenticated or not. And based on that, load the navigators. If you want to learn more about React navigation, I actually created a video using React navigation version 7. In case you're using V7, check out this video. Check out the course in the description, and I'll see you in the next one.